Hey, welcome to the Intimate Breath podcast. I'm Lore, and this is a space where we explore intimacy, sexuality, embodiment, the way we relate to ourselves, to others, and to life. We do this through honest conversations, vulnerable stories, sometimes unexpected questions, and I hope it offers you something you can actually feel. You are so welcome. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to share it, leave a comment, or subscribe. This really helps me to keep these conversations going. So let's dive in. This time I'm sitting together with Tom from Belgium and with his company, The Meervoudige Man, which is Dutch. He works with men about sexuality. So this episode is a lot about male sexuality, even though I'm also bringing in my perspectives as a woman into it. And it's great because it's both Tom sharing from his expertise, but it's also Tom sharing from his own real, honest, vulnerable stories and experiences. It's been a real joy to create this episode together, and I hope you enjoy it too. My very first question to you is, what would your current self advise your younger self? And maybe your younger self would be like, oh my God, I hate this advice.
Okay. Take your space. Dare to be yourself, dare to take space. Don't care so much what others think about you. Just do what you need to do.
In what ways do you mean that? What contexts are we thinking of?
Anything really? In terms of sexuality, then mostly from very early on, I've been suppressing large parts of it, not daring to ask for what I wanted, not daring to state my desires. And then, obviously not getting them and making myself smaller. And I'm only now, I'm 45 now, only the last couple of years discovering how powerful it is to really acknowledge for myself what my desires are and to express them. And then sometimes the other party also wants that, surprisingly. And when I was younger, I never realized that or acknowledged that would actually be possible. Yeah.
Why do you think that is? That is something that didn't come natural to you from the beginning.
I think the typical story, being told as a kid to be good, to behave, not to be too loud, not to take up too much space. And then, there's lots of taboo around sexuality. There's lots of things in society. And then taking that in and making myself smaller.
I think many of the people that have been with me on workshops or just watch some social media with me, there's a lot about this daring to express desires and the fear of getting a no, but also the fear sometimes of getting a yes. From, what if they want to say?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you recognize that one as well? Or
how mostly the surprise, like I've been at workshops where the exercise was to express your desire and then to find out who else maybe had a similar desire. And that always happened. That was really magic. Like someone expresses something or I express something that I thought, ooh, this is a bit edgy. Am I going to actually say that? So they're gonna think I'm weird. And then two other people say, oh yes, I want that too. It's like, what? It's been very magical and amazing. And I'm now doing it in my personal life too. And it's amazing how often it actually works out. Yeah.
I love looking at our sexuality also as a mirror to bring it into the bigger context of life and all the different facets of life. And so I'm curious if you have noticed that it's kind of spilling out in other areas for you.
For sure, exactly as you say it. It's a mirror. It all gets, or a magnifying glass even, it really gets magnified, the patterns that are going on. Then I do recognize them in many other areas as well, like making myself small, not expressing my desire, not going for my pleasure. Yeah, for sure.
So would you say that this is what you are about?
Expressing pleasure, allowing pleasure. Yeah. Yeah. That's actually very close. And it's interesting to notice that I had to turn 45 to realize that. Yeah.
You're here as a guest on this podcast because you also have a beautiful offering. And so
Mhm.
I'm curious to hear a little bit more about what that is and also how you got to that now at
Mhm.
45. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm training men's sexuality. I'm working with groups of men, and I teach them a whole lot of things. One of them is brotherhood, and to really learn to talk about sexuality amongst men, which is something that's very rare, I notice, in real life. When we do talk amongst men about sexuality, it's usually in a joking way, or being making yourself a bit bigger, and yeah, but never in depth, never in a vulnerable way. And I think that's direly needed in society, because men tend to see each other as competitors, especially when it comes to women. And when you can really, in a vulnerable way, share about it, it's starting to feel more as brothers rather than competitors. I think that is very important. Also, to just talk about it helps so much in acknowledging what's there, hearing from others who might have the same struggles. And I think that's a very important part of what I do. Yeah, from there on, I also teach practical techniques in sexuality, mostly learning to avoid ejaculation too soon, or to learn to decide when you ejaculate, which I think is really important. And then a number of techniques to delve deeper into to sexuality in a lot of different aspects. And yeah, how did I get there? At some point, I was in a long relationship, and sexuality was not as I wanted it to be. At the time, I thought it was just not enough, but now I realize it was also about depth and variety, which I also craved. And then I tried to change it within the relationship, but it didn't quite work out. She didn't do what I wanted, I guess. And then I felt I could decide to, either go look for it elsewhere, or maybe even leave the relationship, or try to find it in myself. And I chose the latter, which was not the easiest path, because I couldn't find a lot about that when I started reading about Tantra and things, but it was mostly about interaction with other people. And yeah, that wasn't working for me. So I really tried to find it in myself. And I discovered so much, mostly in self-pleasure. And yeah, I was really fascinated by it. Started reading a lot of, I think I read every book about it that I could find. Started talking about it in men's groups with other men. And at some point I noticed that every time I got in a conversation in a personal development space with other men, I started talking about it. I wanted to tell everyone about it, and I thought, okay, I have to do it in a bit more structured way. So then I started to give workshops, and in a more structured way, to take men along and to tell them what I actually discovered. Yeah.
I see your enthusiasm, and I've been in the same period before.
Okay.
I think self-pleasuring has really been like my main focus some years back now,
Yeah.
and in a period, because it was so important for me as well. And it's really how I discovered so much about my own erotic body, but also emotions, and
Mm-hmm.
how sexuality and emotions come together, and how I can release tension that's stored in my body by
Mm-hmm.
myself, and has been this whole yoni egg journey. Like all of it has been very much in the focus for me, and I really recognize the excitement also, like I need to tell everybody.
Why do people not know this? How is this possible? Yeah.
While I found it hard sometimes to share, or to try to explain the depth that I found there, because it was so much about slowing down and being with myself in a completely new way. Um, yeah, so I'm curious to hear a bit more about how that is for you, and how this relates to the relationship you have with yourself in a bigger sense as well.
Yeah. I find it's really about giving something to myself. And that was probably the biggest deal for me, to allow myself to give myself pleasure or love, or in even broader sense, to just give that with just like that, without there having to be a need for, or without a goal, just to give that to myself. That's been the biggest deal. And I find when I explain it like that, particularly to men, that doesn't work quite well. And I wouldn't have heard that myself. I started about 5 years ago with an online course called The Valley Orgasm, from Reinhard Eleveld, Tao Training. And I heard the words, but I didn't get it. And it's only now, after so many years, that I start to understand that that's what it's about. And I still find it challenging, somehow, because indeed it requires slowing down and allowing yourself to receive this, which is tricky in our goal-oriented world and in my goal-oriented head. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so many words like self-love, and or let's just stick with self-love. It's so abstract in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's something I think you need to experience before you get it, and
Yeah.
how you get there is not such a clear path. And then I think what I'm hearing is that for you, it's been really through the body and through
Oh, yes. Yeah.
embodiment practices that you also access that feeling.
Yeah, exactly. So when I heard it, self-love and the concept, and then maybe even meditations around it, that didn't enter my system at all. But indeed, through the physical, that worked very well for me, like touching myself and feeling myself. And from there on, feeling the love, that was super helpful. That made all the difference. Yeah. I'm also very fond of bodywork type practices for healing. I've tried a number of types of therapy, but psychology type of talk therapy never really worked. I mean, I like my head liked talking with his other head on a very cognitive level. I was good at it, but nothing really happened. But then when someone touched me deeply and stayed with it, that made all the difference. And by having others teach me this, by having others touch me, I've actually learned to touch myself in the same way. I don't think I would have been able to do it just by myself. Maybe not, but that's been very helpful. Yeah.
I recognize what you say, but I definitely also have it the other way around, where it helped me so much to know how I need to be with myself for my pussy to relax and soften, and for pleasure to be able to come, and space for emotions, and space for waves and ups and downs, and no goal, and all of that is really something I first learned with myself before I could actually bring it to the relational. And what I hear from you is that there's a certain type of presence in touch that you rather learned through getting
Yeah.
it from somebody else. Yeah.
Mm. It's been a back and forth, I think. I'm quite yang masculine by myself, and I find it quite hard to slow down and get in touch with myself and just be still. And that I've definitely learned from others who then were able to do it with me. That's been very helpful. But then on the other side, when I learned that from others and I did it with myself, that actually deepened it more. But yeah, I do think I needed this yin part from others to really get there. And then I'm talking about not necessarily in a sexual way. This was also just in body work sessions with others who really taught me to stay with the body, to become more embodied, and yeah, be still. And then indeed doing it then with myself, that actually deepened it more. And the other can also be a distraction when discovering your own body, because it's really hard not to please and to totally just be with yourself when someone else is there. So it's definitely helpful to do it on your own. And that I also teach that in my trainings. Basically, the exercises I give, you can do them with a partner, and it's probably much more fun. But it's so helpful to just be with yourself and not have any distraction. It can be very frustrating in the beginning when you're not used to it or not get aroused just by yourself or without external stimuli. But it's such a good skill to have, to learn.
Being able to do it without external stimuli, it's for me really important to add that there's nothing wrong with the stimuli and you can add them back on afterwards. And when we talk about external stimuli here, we're talking about something broader than pornography, but it's also pornography. It can be fantasies, sexy stories, any type of, intensity or needing something outside of ourselves to access the arousal and the charge. You're just looking at somebody, right? That's all external stimuli. And porn is simply one example that often comes up. But knowing that you don't need it, that you can strip them off and find something there maybe, and then you can choose to add them again.
Yes, I totally agree. And the external stimuli are also a lot of fun. So, but indeed, it's very, very good to learn to do it also without, and to discover that it's not necessary. It's a lot of fun, but not necessary. I, I, yeah, I don't want to shame watching porn, but also I think it can have very negative effects, especially on men. For women, I'm not so sure, because it provides a lot of very extreme stimuli very quickly after each other. There's scene after scene after scene, lots of dopamine hits, which means your system really gets used to these extreme stimuli and comes to expect them to become aroused or to have an orgasm. And that's a pity when you're with a partner or just with yourself, if you start to really need it and depend on it. And it also tends to make us as men, then in particular, much more much more goal oriented. There is this rush to a peak, to an orgasm. So I advocate for not doing that too much, actually, to avoid having that in your system too much.
I've had a few explorative calls in groups around specifically the theme of porn, and I'm sure you've talked a lot about it too. And it comes back over and over again with the people I have talked to that maybe there's like a bit of a sugar craving feeling to it, but actually when they're feeling in their body, it's a little bit of like, ah, it's not such a nice pleasure often for them, or there can be this feeling afterwards like, oh, now it needs to go away, or there's a bit of a backlash often somehow.
Yeah, I agree. And the way I explain it in my trainings is that there can be a difference between what I call fantasy, like playing an image in your head or actually watching an image on a screen, and then embodied imagination. And the latter, as I explain it, is to maybe go through a story or through a fantasy, but to really feel it in your entire body. Let the body move with it, make sounds, really feel like your entire system with all your senses experience that story or that fantasy. And that feels so different from just watching a movie in your head. And maybe I'm just now thinking of that. Maybe that would also be a way to experience porn. Like while you're watching to it, really try to do it in a more embodied way and really go into it rather than just purely visually watching it from a distance.
And I think that's actually what we've been doing in these calls as well, is to really, from an embodied perspective, explore the theme. And then it became often very clear that it's way too intense. It's hard to really stay with it in the pace that it often goes.
Yeah.
So earlier you told us that you think it's important to be able to choose if you come and when you come.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you say that?
Well, as boys, we learn to masturbate age 10, 11, 12, and it's often in secret. And it's often really aimed at getting an orgasm as quick as possible for the pleasure, but also not to be discovered. And by basically training that for so many years, that really becomes the entire experience, like trying to come to ejaculate as fast as possible. And that's fine. I mean, nothing wrong with doing that once in a while or even often. But there's so much more possible in sexuality, both with yourself and with others. And controlling ejaculation is part of it, because the typical response for men is to stimulate, get aroused, have an orgasm, ejaculate, and then you're done. You're tired, you want to sleep. That's the typical response. But there's a lot of different aspects to it, and they can all be separate. And men don't believe me when I say this, but it's true. You can have an orgasm and not ejaculate, or you can ejaculate and not have an orgasm. That's not great. Or you can even ejaculate and not be tired and just be able to continue. And those are biological things that typically happen together. That's the way we're programmed to do. But they can all be separated, and that really expands the potential amount of fun so much. Because when you don't ejaculate and thus don't have this tiredness or loss of erection and so forth afterwards, the pleasure can keep increasing. You can keep stimulating. The pleasure can keep increasing. You can have an orgasm and then wait a bit and have another one with even more pleasure. And that's so nice and brings you so much. Yes, I love it. Brings you so much in your body and can even become a spiritual experience at some point. So that for me is already a major thing. Apart from that, when you're with a partner, it's actually quite hard to be attuned to each other when this ejaculation is waiting there to happen after 3 minutes. I mean, maybe your partner isn't there yet, or maybe she or he just wants to have a longer experience. And so if this biological ejaculation thing is just there, it becomes really hard to be attuned to each other. Also, it's so much fun to make the experience a bit longer. I mean, I love having sex. It's a really shame if it only lasts 5 minutes. So yeah, it's a very practical, technical thing for men to learn to control this ejaculation, but it is core of what I teach, because it's a basis. Because yeah, things just end way too soon if you cannot control that.
And in my experience, it's just a world of difference to have sex where it's constantly about not yet, and then when it happens, it's done. Even if, however much he wants to be there or be present or still play with me because I still long for something dropped.
Yeah.
And it's such a world of difference with having this problem of like, when are we gonna stop now, or
Yeah.
what is the who's gonna say maybe now?
Yeah.
we had enough. It's yeah, it's a very different experience.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And this problem you mentioned, I also find it an interesting learning experience. Like indeed, so when are we going to stop? And lately I've really started feeling in my body that there's some kind of arc, tension arc created. And at some point the arc goes down. And the first times I felt it, I felt a bit insecure, like, oh, what's happening? There's this exciting woman next to me, and why is my arousal decreasing a bit? What's going on? And I've learned to acknowledge that it's just the arc of tension that goes down and can also go back up again. And then I've checked in a couple of times with a partner, and she also felt it. So that was actually a very nice learning experience to listen to my body and then, hey, okay, it's because I noticed I still had this performative thing in me. Like, I mean, I haven't ejaculated, so I could continue, and maybe she wants to do more wild things, so I should prove I can do the wild things because I'm a proper man. but no, and then we did the wild things later on, which was much nicer. Because I kind of learning to follow this rhythm of the body.
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit, now that we're talking about it, it reminds me a bit of being in a phone call with somebody and just to catch up and talk, and there's no goal and there's no decided time when we will stop. It's just at some point this feeling of like, maybe it's time to wrap up here. What do you think? It's like, yeah, it feels complete. It just feels complete right now.
Yeah.
And we can talk again whenever we want to talk.
Yeah.
But then with
Is there
our
a
bodies.
yeah. Is there a particular thing you notice yourself? What in your body tells you that it's complete?
It could be perceived as distraction, but I don't want to say it's distraction. It's more like there's a new impulse to move somewhere else now with my focus. That's how I would describe it. There starts to build up an impulse to now, work on this project or go do this in the kitchen, or it's not because I don't like it here anymore. It's just now I want to move to this next thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's usually how it comes to me.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I've noticed that maybe a little bit loss of presence. And for me, it's mostly a bit of a decrease in arousal. But I usually then want to stay and cuddle or something a bit more. Not like go away and do something different right away.
I didn't mean it like that. It's just this like noticing of indeed there's something is shifting inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course I'm staying and I want to do all the beautiful things to make it really feel complete for us. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And
But
I
to listen
sometimes
to.
yeah, exactly. And then sometimes the arc goes up again, and that's also then really nice to notice. And oh, look at this! What's happening now? Yeah.
This whole journey that you've traveled with yourself so far, can you say a little bit more about how that has impacted your sex life that you share with other people?
Yeah. Oh, it's become so much more wonderful. One thing I've noticed is that the partner who would previously not follow my pace so much has actually caught up just because I started doing things differently by working on my own sexuality. So by doing this self-pleasure in a much more conscious way, I've learned to fill up my own cup in a sense. So I didn't go grab things with others so much as I used to do before. So I could have sex with someone really from a nice extra or something I actually have to give, rather something I have to go take from someone. That's made a big difference, I think. And I hear from women, they also find that much more attractive, and from men as well. It's not so different. So that's one important part. Also, I learned to slow down a lot and really enjoy the pleasure in that. So not slowing down because she wants me to, but rather because I enjoy it too, and because it's so enjoyable to actually be in tune with the other person, really feel them, and the feeling really requires slowing down. I cannot feel as quickly as I can think. Maybe others can, I cannot. So that really requires slowing down, and then that has also increased my own pleasure to feel my own pleasure, to really be in touch with every little thing I do during sex, rather than really go for the orgasm and don't really care about the rest. Mostly that.
I just feel this excitement about, as you're talking about sex, everything you're saying is also how I want to live. And again, that's this, mirror of life, but the mindful living and the taking in every moment that's there and seeing what's right here. And yeah, there's so many aspects of what you just spoke into that arouse me for life. I want to jump back to the moment where you explained that these different parts can be separated: ejaculation, orgasm, arousal. And I've been wondering how, probably you don't have an answer to this, but I've been wondering how similar it is to my experience with my body, where I've definitely felt when it comes to ejaculation that it's possible for me to ejaculate without feeling so much, without an orgasm, really. It's more like, uh, and I also know how it is to ejaculate with an orgasm, and I also know how it is to orgasm without ejaculation. And now I'm focusing on like G-spot area only, and then there's more for me, right? But I wonder if you can share a little bit more about your experience with that and how the different options feel like.
Sure. Yeah, I have no idea how to compare it to a female body. I mean,
I understand.
inhabited one, so I can only go by what I hear from women. Oh yeah, in my experience, maybe first of all, an orgasm without ejaculation can feel very similar, but then without the actual physical contractions of semen coming out. But there's many more types of orgasm. They can be very energy orgasm like, so a bit more higher in the system. Not sure how to explain it. So yeah, much more energetic and less physical. They can also be more physical with really lots of body movement, pelvic thrusts, and that sort of thing. They feel more grounded. If you're into chakras and stuff, I can actually have orgasms at the different chakras, and so the lower ones are much closer to what I know from an ejaculatory orgasm, while the higher ones are more energy type orgasms. Then yeah, ejaculation without orgasm, that's not so great. It's just like peeing or something. Not so interesting, but but it is interesting in a way to experience it, to notice that these things can be separated. The orgasm can really have different levels. Like when you go for a very fast quickie without being conscious, without really being there, you can have an orgasm and ejaculation, but it's a really very boring orgasm, like of the of the smallest kind. And then yeah, one level below that would be no orgasm. But yeah, I guess that's a subtle difference. Perhaps I want to talk a bit about the refractory period as well. So typically the following sequence happens. So you stimulate, you get aroused, you have nice feelings, and at some point there is an orgasm, which is a super nice feeling with a bit of loss of control, perhaps. And then automatically the ejaculation follows, which then triggers a series of hormones in the system, which makes the erection go away, arousal go away, and you feel tired. That last part I sometimes call energy loss or getting tired. And it's also possible to avoid that. So it's possible to have an orgasm, have an ejaculation, and then be able to continue. That's a very nice skill to have, and apparently some men have that naturally, not very many, and that's super hard to learn. I don't teach that in my course because it's much easier to learn to not ejaculate, but that's actually also possible. And there's erections, of course. People think it's a prerequisite to have an erection to experience all of this, but that's not true. That's also something that's different. So what typically happens if you go above a certain level of arousal, you get an erection, and then after the ejaculation, it goes down. But you can also have this whole thing without erection. So that's also a separate thing.
And that one is also not so binary. Can also be half erection,
Yeah, for sure.
25% or
Yeah, yeah,
67%.
yeah. And all those phases are also fun to play with. So yeah. Oh, there's so much emphasis and stress about erections that's both in men and in women. I wish that were less.
Yeah, there's so much unshaming work and de-mything
Yes.
work
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
genitals in general,
Yeah.
or
Exactly.
sexuality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not sure what your opinion is about this, but in the more conscious community, I notice people are starting to become a lot more conscious when a woman is ready to receive, like her yoni is ready, there's lubrication, and that really needs time to get there. But for men, I notice much less about that. Like erections are supposed to be there at some point, and if they're not, that's a little bit cringe. But so far, so it's really nice that this is happening for women, but for men, that could also have a bit more.
I have some older blog posts about this too, and I might link them in the show notes as well. But even when there is an erection, it doesn't mean that a man is ready or that the body is sensitive and present. And, there can be an erection that's more like an automatic response to some type of stimuli, but then actually feeling and being warmed up and being embodied is still needed to be able to receive that as well. I imagine there's a lot of people that it's like if you don't know, you don't know. If that is the normal, then that is the normal.
Mm-hmm.
But once you've had the experience of a body that's just there
Mm-hmm.
and a penis that is there,
Mm-hmm.
or a vagina, it's just can be a completely different world.
Mm-hmm.
The exact same action can be experienced in such a different way.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, exactly. I keep noticing in myself how much charge there is to erections, and even if I have and I've been done so much work about this. I have a long lovemaking session. At some point, I feel my erection is going down a bit, and that's actually just a signal of my body that it's time to rest a bit, and then afterwards we can continue. And then still my mind starts going, but oh, what's going on, and am I losing it? And I'm training men's sexuality, and it's not working for me. Yeah, it's crazy how much there is to it. And also I notice when I have more energetic orgasms, the erection is much less and sometimes even hardly there. And even then, I'm still having a little doubt on what's going on, and I'm feeling so aroused, and this is so much fun. And why do I not have a full erection? And yeah, I now do notice these things. That's a good way to further get rid of all the charge on it. But it's so big, and I noticed this in almost all men I see in my groups have some sort of thing about erections. Yeah.
Actually, in a few days, there's another Juicy Genitals Day coming up, and it's always a topic there as well. And I think it's a bit unfair that for people with penises, it's something so obvious, and then it can be in the wrong moment It can be unwelcome when it's there and damned for not being there in the moments you want it to be there. While for someone with a vagina, it's the same thing is happening. It's just not so visible, right? It's like I'm more free to experience my arousal
Mm-hmm.
in the way I want it to
Mm-hmm.
feel. And it's interesting to be in sexual contexts with men where a penis can get hard and get soft and shift in between,
Mm-hmm.
and how much charge I can feel there as well about, I will always just, in a usually playful way or loving way, just like show that I care as much, I'm still there, and
Mm-hmm.
but to just ask something about, where are you at, or what's happening for you, or can already be experienced as a shaming question. Well, I just want to check in, right? I don't want to assume based on what I'm seeing or feeling. I just want to check in verbally. Um, can be so easily interpreted as something is not okay, or I'm not being accepted in my soft cockness, or
Mm-hmm.
and then sometimes I can be a bit disappointed because I was, enjoying the hard cock, and then how to be with that, because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's a lot around it, as you say. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. There is actually one trick I teach to men about erections that I think is very helpful, because the way you mention it, I mean that's the way to go, to go in depth, really go into all the feelings around it, communicate around it, learn to relax at when it's appropriate. So that's the in-depth way of going about it. But there's also a physiological aspect that's actually very easy to change, and I like to take that angle because. What happens when you grow older? Your vascularity decreases a bit, the blood flow decreases a bit. It's just a general system level type of thing, and also erections get harder. No, they don't get harder; they get harder to get. Or it takes more time to get an erection. When there's arousal, it might take more time. They might not get as hard as they used to, or they might go down a bit faster. And that's partly a vascularity thing, just really about the veins that go through the penis. And there exist very simple physical exercises to improve that. So you can view that as a bit performance oriented, like this erection needs to be there. That's not the way I teach it. It's rather trying to support the system. And to bootstrap it a bit in that way. It's a very simple physical thing you can do to train your penis a bit if you want. And that then helps to get an erection more easily. And then you get positive feedback, because when you feel aroused, it will be more easy. And then you can get a positive feedback loop rather than the negative one where you get shamed and or you shame yourself and so forth. So that's one way I like to approach it, and that seems to work quite well. What's also nice about it, it's a very physical exercise to be with your penis without a goal. It's just certain movements that you make, and that helps to learn to be present with it. There's no goal. You just make movements with it, and that's it. And men like that, to just be present with it, not trying to achieve something. Yeah.
I wonder how much it's related to the pelvic floor yoga that I also bring in my courses.
It's probably
Mm.
different. It's really about
Mm.
vascularity. So the goal while doing these exercises is to keep the pelvic floor totally relaxed. So I think the pelvic floor is another aspect to it. And what I teach about pelvic floor is mostly for men to relax, to learn to relax it. And then I do have specific exercises for a couple of things, but I don't generally advertise them because men just tend to be too tense. Is that also your experience?
Yeah, the pelvic floor yoga that I teach is also it's different from Kegels, where the emphasis is on strengthening it, because yes, we're tensing and relaxing, but mainly to be able to relax.
What I do try to teach is to get a bit more precise control over the different muscle groups, which I think is nice and can also just be a lot of fun to play with.
Exactly. So that's another aspect indeed. And I think it's a bit like, how good it is to be able to control when you ejaculate or not, or
Did you know you can have orgasm just by playing with these pelvic floor muscles?
Did you know you could have muscle pain or soreness from doing that?
Yes, I do. So when you discover you can have these orgasms by playing with them, you tend to do that too much, and then yeah.
Sweet. Just going back to the moment where you said just being with your penis without anything needing to happen, it reminds me of another oral sex workshop where we showed at some point just, I was laying around his crotch, just kind of like we started like that. I was just cuddling his genitals. And then after that, we went through a lot of different things around actually oral sex. And then people could practice in the room. And the thing that came back most, at least that day, was, can we do the cuddling and just laying there? And the aspect of penis just, being there however it wants to be there, soft or hard, or then a little bit soft again, or however, right? To just be cuddled and loved. And
Yeah, that's such a wonderful feeling. Yeah.
So that really stood out, how many men asked for that exactly.
Yeah.
While there were so many other exciting things to practice.
It's always hard to choose.
Earlier you mentioned that your sex life has also become a lot more varied than before. Do you want to tell us more?
Yeah, there's multiple aspects to it. One is the slowing down and in the moment feeling what can happen from there, rather than following a set routine. Like, many people get into a rut. Like I go like close to her, then maybe touch her breast, and then do this and this and this, and then we both have an orgasm and it's all good. It can get very boring after a while. And then when slowing down and really feeling into the moment, so many different things can happen when you let go of this typical pattern where penis has to go into vagina and so forth. Maybe there's so many other things, or maybe it can go in and then back out and do something different. And that has led to much more variety and much more fun. Like every lovemaking session becomes different, which I love. Really, there's no two that are alike now, and that's so much fun. Also, I think we've talked about desires and knowing what you want and expressing what you want by really looking there. What do I really want, and learning to express it. I've also found so many more things that I like. I love the model of the erotic blueprints by Jaya. So she describes 4 different types of way to enter sexuality, and then one other type that's a bit different. And the types are the energetic, the sensual, sexual, kinky. And then there's the shapeshifter who wants them all and needs them all. And by recognizing that those different things exist, I started also exploring these different things and recognizing that I actually also needed them. So I identify with the shapeshifter. So the thing was, there could be periods that I was having as much sex as I felt I wanted, and it was really enjoyable, and still something was missing, and that was weird. And then later I discovered it was this variety. I also wanted to be kinky once in a while, and also these other things. So that's been really eye-opening for me. Yeah.
Extremely recognizable for me. Yeah. It has been a very powerful model for me to understand myself, to understand my partners.
Yeah, exactly. Also understand the partners. That's also so important. Like, also see them as a whole in the way they are, and then really enjoy that, and acknowledge that for me maybe that's not enough.
And I think for me, that's a big part of why non-monogamy works really well for me. It's the need for the variety and the different flavors. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been wondering, is it actually possible to find everything in one person? I hear from some people it works for them and it's wonderful. So I'd really love to meet a person like that.
Me too. I'm open for that to happen.
Okay, me too. Let's manifest it together.
And what I also recognize is in one of the previous episodes as well, where I talk with Yves Bonra, like good sex or like the best sex we know. For me, I would describe that as the kind of sex that is unpredictable and adapts all the time to how we're both feeling, what is coming up, the inspiration, or the creative ideas that come up without a script.
Yeah, I recognize that when you back to the blueprints, if you can like flow from one blueprint to the other without planning and it just happens, that's really so amazing. Those have been my best experiences ever. Yeah. And then, yeah, I guess you can see the twinkle in my eyes. Yeah. And, not only even the Jaya blueprints, but also if you look a bit more at power play or that sort of thing, to really shift from dominant to submissive and back and forth and that's all together. Yeah. And before we were speaking about how sexuality is a mirror or even a lens on different parts of your life. And I can see that there too. There I also like variety, and sometimes I feel like I'm too much. So all these things also come back there. So yeah.
And for all the listeners that are not feeling us in, what we're talking about, you don't need to be a shapeshifter either. It's okay if you're happy with one flavor. Uh, we're just getting excited because there's recognition here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and the depth you can have with someone who has a preference for one of the blueprints is also super nice. So yeah. They all have their own superpowers, as Jaya puts it, and I really recognize that. Yeah, and their own shadow sides. Yeah.
As I understood, it's something you work also with in your um, programs for men.
Mm-hmm.
It's also something that's part of my programs. How would you, in your words, describe shadow work?
Shadow work. We all have different parts in us, different thoughts, different emotions, and some of them we're aware of. We acknowledge and just let them be, or let them be with some resistance. Some of them we're not aware of. And that can be a little problematic, because if something is a part of you, it will come out at some point. And if you don't acknowledge it, you push it away, it tends to come out sneakily, like from the back. For example, maybe I'm really angry at you, Laura, but I pretend I'm not. But then what I might do is make a sneaky remark at some point, even without me noticing it. And that's not a, yeah, in that way, you cannot control it. It's just happening, yeah, sneakily from the back. It's a more conscious way to deal with it. If you can express the feeling that's there. If I'm angry at Laura, it's better that I can just say it. Well, I'm now fucking angry at you, and then we can deal with it as adults, and then the emotion can be there and it can be dealt with, or we go away from each other or whatever. We can deal with it. If it's sneaky from the back, it can really be problematic, and that's the case for primary emotions, but also for all sorts of sexual desires. So it's really nice if you can actually find what the desire is and then consciously decide how you want to deal with it. Maybe it's fine that it's just there and you're never going to do it, but you're aware of it. Or you choose to find someone to play with it, or you have some fantasy thing to play with it. And then it can be expressed, it can be there, and it's safe. There's actually, you shine light on the desire. And that's very helpful to become a more healthy and conscious person. So that's a really important part of what I do with the men. And what's always a really powerful moment is we do this workshop where we try to find our hidden desires, and then we actually express them to each other. It's very vulnerable. I wouldn't do this in the first time we meet. It's very vulnerable, but it's so powerful to actually be able to say, like, I would really love to do this and this, and maybe society doesn't accept it. That's part of me. Yeah. Yeah, and here I'm wondering if you do this in mixed groups, both men and women together. We do it in men's groups, and I think in this context, sometimes it's nice to have a men's group because it gives a little bit more safety, because you don't have the polarity that's always there in a mixed gender group. So I think there it is helpful. On the other hand, I think both are really valuable. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's value in women's groups or
Yeah.
men's groups or mixed groups or non-binary groups, or
Very, yeah.
they all have their pros and cons. And I think the way I bring shadow work is not only focused on sexuality or hidden desires, it's also what do we see in each other in terms of behavior. So there's a lot of mirror work and feedback work happening there, which, I mean, it's always linked to our sexuality in my world. But you mentioned earlier, you didn't mention it on this recording. You mentioned to me earlier something about semen retention. And I wondered if there's another piece there that you would love to share with us.
Yes. If you look, especially in online communities, there's a lot of stuff out there about how much you should ejaculate, or maybe not even ejaculate at all. And there's a lot of misinformation out there, I find. So the way I like to look at sexual energy and conserving it is that it's good to realize that your sexual energy is in a way something precious. It's a resource you have, and you probably shouldn't squander it unconsciously. The way I like to view it is we have a little reservoir inside of it, in our belly or wherever you want it, and automatically it gets replenished with life force energy. And when, as a man, you ejaculate, you expel a little bit of it, you lose a little bit of it. And this life force energy, that's a very nice thing. It really keeps us going. It keeps us alive. It keeps us vital. It helps with arousal in sexuality. You can have a lot of fun with it as well. So it's nice to deal with it consciously. However, if you choose never to ejaculate or not enough, it gets too much for the system. Like it's kind of makes you grumpy and maybe a bit fixed in your ideas and a bit too forward looking. So it can give a lot of tension that's not helpful anymore. And there exist techniques to learn to spread it in your system, to transmute it in other types of creative force. So if you can do that, I think it's really helpful to accumulate it. But just to do semen retention for the sake of it, I'm not a great fan of that one. On the other side, I also think it's good to be conscious with it, to really not squander your energy if you don't have to, because it is a precious resource. So things like ejaculating 3 times a day to get rid of stress, that's probably not great for your vitality. So I think it's important to find a balance in it. And I encourage the men in my groups to keep track. Have a bit of a diary, notice for not always, but just for a while to notice in yourself, what effect does it have on me when I ejaculate or I don't ejaculate for a long time, and where do I want to be, to also become conscious about that. So I think that's an important thing to strike the right balance there. There's typically also an age relationship. Younger men can ejaculate a lot without feeling any effects, while when you get a bit older, you have to be a bit more conscious about it.
I've had this period where I track my cycle always, and I've had this period where I tracked it a lot more detailed and nuanced every day for more than a year, and it's just tracking hormones and how it impacts us and my feelings and my thoughts and my body and my everything, my dreams, my and basically what I'm hearing is would also be good for men to learn just how it impacts and how it feels and what happens.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yes, and I love this analogy because that's exactly the same thing that's happening. For women, it's more fixed. There's an approximately monthly cycle, and that's automatically there. And for men, it's really ejaculation dependent. There is indeed a hormonal cycle depending on when you ejaculate. So it's the same process, but perhaps for men a little bit more difficult to track because there isn't this biological imperative of approximately monthly. A lot of what I teach is also based on Taoism, and there they make this very, very same comparison. They say when men ejaculate, they lose some sexual energy. When women menstruate, they lose some sexual energy.
Just the most simple way of looking at ejaculation is also, or semen ejaculation is, well, it could create a baby. Like there's so much in there, so much liveness in there. So it makes sense that there's not an endless, it's not a resource we should just throw everywhere for multiple reasons.
I totally agree. And if you believe in energy in all the possible senses, you can actually separate that as well. So you have the physical process of ejaculation, but there's some nutrients in it. But in our modern society, we have plenty of nutrients. But there's an energetic aspect to it as well. So I mentioned before that it's possible to ejaculate and not lose your arousal. Well, if you manage that, you're actually not expelling the energy. You're just expelling fluid, and the energy stays. So those are actually separate things as well. But that's really hard to learn, to master.
So here we can do the same thing as if we're having a phone call or as if we're having sex. We can feel in. Maybe it's getting time.
Can't see what happens. Okay, I like cuddling.
So you've been throwing in a lot of teases for people, for men, to get curious about all the things you're teaching people. How could people find you or reach out to you if they want to learn more?
Yeah, mostly through my website. It's called Meervoudige Man. The link is meervoudigeman.be, Belgium. And yeah, I teach men's groups. There's 2 modules. The first is about self-pleasure and ejaculation control. And the second is more about energetic aspects of it, learning to conserve sexual energy, learning to circulate it and use it for other purposes.
So the link will be in the show notes and people can look there.
And I've got a suggestion for the listeners who are interested in the blueprints, who perhaps want to discover what their own main blueprints are. I've put a free test on the website of the Meervoudige Man, where you can answer a couple of questions, and then afterwards you get a percentage for each of the blueprints and some explanation. So if you're interested to try that out, simply go to meervoudigeman.be/blauwdrukken and then fill out the questions and discover your blueprints. We'll also put a link in the show notes. Yeah, I also have a free course, a free mini course that's available on my website. It consists of a number of emails in which I give away all my secrets. But I also do believe very much in doing it together. And there's a real strength in following, creating a group of men and going through all these stages together. You can find most of this information in various different sources, and I give it away in my mini course, but it's actually quite hard to do it on your own. And so that's what I actually do. I provide support for men to go into it and to do it in a very deep way.
Thank you so much for sharing some of these secrets already here.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.